game MLB main slate. So many interesting little nooks and crannies that we'll unpack for you throughout the course of the next hour. I'm Chris Spags, joined as always on Thursdays by my good pal, the baseball savant, Jake Hari. How are you doing, Jake?
Doing well, coming off a big early slate where I won $4. So
Ooh.
yeah, $4. My ROI was positive, very close to being negative, but yeah, things are moving up. So 5 game slate, right back at it tonight. There's Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. Really good series going on there too. So it's gonna be a good one.
It is a good one. And if you want to win $4 all your own, all you have to do is sign up for that promo code Live Before Lock for an Awesemo Plus membership. Get all of the ownership projections, the rankings, the daily deep dive column, the top stacks tool, which we reference on a lot of our content, the lineup builder, a lot of different things that'll help you make better MLB DFS lineups every day. So use that promo code Live Before Lock to get in there. And you too could be winning big like Jake Hari. $4, that is almost a combo meal, Jake.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna spend it all, but hopefully not in one place. So hoping to double that tonight, maybe win 8 on this main slate.
So I did something a little weird. Actually, I didn't talk to you about it off the air, but I talked about it with Josh off the air on our show we did yesterday on the Live Before Lock show. So I'm trying something a little weird just because I like using baseball to experiment. I do think it's a sport that kind of rewards experimentation more than the others. Yesterday, I did a couple of lineups that were just using home run rates as projections. And I actually had both of those were in the top 20 in the 20,000 person tournament that I was in. So heavy on home run prediction or home run rates again today. I don't know, man. Is that something you look at a little more thoroughly? Because that's Josh mentioned like home run rates he found the biggest correlation to with tournament winning lineups, and he's decided to focus in a little bit more on that. So I'm taking it to the extreme. But what are you doing with home runs, Jake?
You know what's interesting about that is I would think that that would be the way to do it, is to weight home runs really heavily. But then I was on the Yahoo show with Alex last Friday, I think it was, and he was talking about how he doesn't really worry about home runs too much. And I can't remember the exact rationale, but I think something along the lines of they just happen so infrequently, it's really tough to predict them.
Right.
So that also made sense to me, but like when they do happen, if you can predict them over the long term, like it would seem like that would be a logical strategy. I don't know. So I'm torn on that recently, because I would have just said, oh yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you just want the most home runs you can get? But there's a little bit more to it than that, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I'm sure there is too, because I mean, you get some different things. Like honestly, the home runs rate, I guess, using that as a projection and then using our regular projections at Osmo.com, you do surface some of the same teams. Like it gets a little bit weird in some places. Like Toronto yesterday is a team that would have surfaced using home run rate and does today as well, but projection wise, they wouldn't surface at all. So I don't know. I think it's something that's helpful for home run positive parks like Toronto's is maybe. And it's something I'm curious about. I'm probably going to keep playing with. And it also could have just been a fluke, but yeah, the Angels I was put on, and I forget who was the main portion of the stack I had, but it was a nice home run day for Tommy LaStella and Trout and my boy Show Tani, who I'm very heavily on again today. And sometimes those guys don't pop up as much projection wise, but they do with the home runs.
Man, Otani's price is just broken, by the way. Like on DraftKings especially. Not as much on the other sites, I don't think, but yeah, they're just pricing him like he's not a good hitter, and he is a very good hitter. And someone in the chat was saying he's going to be low owned. I don't know that that's going to be the case. In fact, I can search that. Yeah, he's
we have him at about
highest
25.
owned hitter. Yeah, highest owned hitter on the slate right now.
Yeah, he's been doing well. I mean, we'll talk about the hitting, and we'll go to pitching first as we normally do here on Live Before Lock. But yeah, the thing with Otani, and Adam talked about it on the deeper dive, and normally I think he's pretty on point with these things where he's like, there's nothing wrong with Otani. I do think there is a bit of a curve for him coming back where, I mean, the elbow, theoretically, the Tommy John surgery he had should only affect him for pitching, but I do think you have an elbow surgery. There is going to be a little bit of favoriting it maybe as part of that process, and maybe that's something that doesn't come out data-wise. But I think he's kind of figuring out how to hit again. I think he's had 2 home runs in back-to-back days, and he just kind of looks like his stroke's a little bit cleaner, at least to me, in a naked eye, and obviously not having seen every time he's been at bat. But he is priced like he's still hitting like he was when he first came back, and I think he's looking like the Otani from last year, at least in the last few games.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He obviously struggled, but his bad ball profile was saying otherwise, or at least that he should turn it around if he continued to create the kind of contact he was creating. So now he's just clearly underpriced, and everyone knows it. Before it was like, well, is there something wrong with him? And we were kind of all at the site saying that we don't think there's anything wrong with him. And turns out it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with him. So, yeah, good old $3,900 hitter batting third against Mike Fiers with the 5 implied total for his team.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll talk about that as we go. We usually do the hitters in the back half of the show, but got to bounce around a little bit because it is a short slate today.
For sure.
This T, by the way, in the YouTube chat saying that home run rate works better on large slates because there are more home runs in general. It's an interesting thought. Yeah, look, it's something I'm playing with, and it's mostly because during the shows, I really can't mess with my lineups too much. The deeper dive guys were talking about that today too, where they're like, I don't know how Jake and Josh do it, like, because you guys are doing the MME entries while you're on the show. I agree with that. Like, hosting the show, like, I like to get whatever I can in done. If things get screwed up along the way, like my priority is hosting, but it's hard. You guys are able to kind of work that left brain and right brain at the same time.
It's difficult, especially when you get close to crunch time and the crunch is moving really slow. So it's tough sometimes. I don't want to make it sound like it's some awful job. Like, you guys get to see what we're doing, which is also what we're trying to do. Like, show you how we're using the rankings and projections and the ownership projections and what we're plugging into Fantasy Cruncher, and like, then we get to talk about our exposures at the end. So it helps the show, but it can be frustrating at times, especially with weather and like late scratches if that ever happens. We've been pretty lucky with that. I think I have on the show at least, but yeah, it's all a balancing act.
It is. And I think too, when we do shows, like when I do a show with you or Josh, it is kind of a balance here where I'm building my stuff in advance. So I think I'm going through the same experience a lot of people who are building lineups are out there when I do it in an hour before the show. But and it gives you a good feel for it. But during the show, like if stuff goes wild, like the Astros lineup has been a real bane of my existence recently.
So annoying.
That never being out on time doesn't help. Thankfully, they are not on the slate though. But yeah, some ups and downs. So it's not all glamorous like it may seem to you as you're watching the stream. I know Jake and I both have movie star good looks, but it's in fact much more difficult than we make it seem.
Yeah, exactly. We just make it look so easy, right?
Yes, effortless at that. All right, Jake, let's talk pitchers up top here. And yeah, hit that like button too. It's a shorter slate show today, but we're going the full hour, so support the channel, help us keep the lights on here, and we'll keep talking about stuff as best we can every day. But pitching, Jake, we got Corbin and Bauer up top, and instead of we'll go one by one too, but just let's go right away. Out of those two, who's your preference?
Actually, Corbin, surprisingly, and it's more to do with the matchup in the park. So I guess it could have just said matchup, but like I think both those guys are obviously super talented. It would be hard to say that they aren't talented. Similar price point, you're getting a little bit of savings with Bauer. But just for me, the Padres are a much less scary team than the Twins are. And like I just would rather not be overweight on the chalk pitcher going up against this Minnesota team. Like, what have they done all season to make you believe that there should be a chalk pitcher against them that's not like Chris Sale? And Bauer, he hasn't been quite the same guy as last season. I know he's obviously a very good pitcher, and I understand that. But I think for the ownership, it's going to be Corbin for me because they're similar in basically every aspect. In fact, you're getting a little bit of an ownership discount on Corbin.
So I think I have a little bit more Bauer by this much, and I'm still a little bit under the field on our ownership projections that we have at Osmo.com on Bauer. Because I agree, this Minnesota lineup Minnesota's a really good hitting team versus both sides, both-handed pitchers rather, and just a ton of power as well. And the Cleveland Park is better than their home park as well, so the production should be there even more. And as you mentioned for Bauer, his numbers are down just a bit. Going back to last year, his xFIP was 3.6. This year so far, 4.5. Going back to last year, a 36% fly ball rate. This year up to just under 41%. Also missing bats a little bit less well. Like, it's not big and in a better spot going against a team who strikes out or just doesn't have the power that Minnesota has. I think you go to Bauer, and I think it's a fine spot to go to. But I agree, it does feel risky. And Corbin, too, can give up power, but at least he's in a pitching park. At least he's going against a team who strikes out 29% of the time. 26% of the time. So it's still a good spot for Corbin relative to what Bauer's going against. And I would agree, like, Bauer's discount is nice, but Corbin, I would rather pay a little bit more and I think feel slightly safer.
Yeah, and people are trying to save up also to buy those Texas bats, which is understandable, but I'm still finding a way to get to close to the field on Corbin as well as way over the field on like the Rangers and some of these Yankees bats as well. So that's what I'm trying to do tonight. I'm able to make it work right now with Corbin in what I think is a little bit easier of a matchup. But if that changes before lock, I'll obviously tell you guys. But right now, it is more Corbin for me than Trevor Bauer, which pains me to say because I loved Bauer last season, but just not. It's daily fantasy, so I don't think tonight's the night to play him super heavy as heavy chalk.
Yeah, and Bauer, maybe over tinkering a little bit with his form and his delivery and all that. And there have enough articles written about it if you want to search that out about what he's trying to become the perfect pitcher, which I admire. But when you're a really, really good pitcher and you're becoming an appreciably slightly worse pitcher, I think you're probably going about it the wrong way. But who knows? I mean, by the end of the year, maybe he'll figure it out and he'll be back to where he was. But to start the year, I agree. He hasn't been quite there. And I think everything factor-wise does kind of favor San Diego. I guess the one factor you could say does favor Trevor Bauer, his team total going against him has come down a little bit throughout the day. So maybe the sharp money's starting to come in and people are buying in on Bauer. And that is one signifier which can be helpful if you are going to him.
For sure.
What about your boy Jose Berrios, who is on of course, the Minnesota Jakes, your favorite team named for you? I think that might be the reason why they're your favorite team. But what are you doing with him at the same price point?
He's another one that I really like, but he's one that I'm going to get to around the same as Bauer. It's just an ownership thing. I think Berrios is super talented. He hasn't been missing bats at the same rate either, but he's not going up against the Twins. So for me, I think he makes for a really interesting pivot off of Bauer. Like, if things go great for both of them, Bauer's going to outscore him more times than not here, just because I think he's more talented at missing bats. But I do think Berrios outscores him a decent amount of time here. And you're seeing some of these Cleveland bats probably coming in pretty chalky once we get an ownership update. I would imagine Kipnis and Bowers are popular. Same thing with Jose Ramirez. And I like all those guys, but you're getting some extra leverage there with Berrios that you're not getting with Bauer.
Yeah, I have a couple Berrios lineups just because he's in that price range and he's a pivot point, and sort of like we talked about yesterday. And this is something which we actually did have our guy Chris Randone, of course, best known for being on our Awesemo staff and doing videos with Alex, secondarily known for being on the Bachelorette and Bachelor Pad.
Of course.
But his article had a shout out for Jason Vargas yesterday, and I had talked on Four Corners, and I think I talked with Josh too about pivots to Yu Darvish. And I was like, DeSclafani seems like one. Of course, didn't even pitch yesterday, which was great. But it ended up being Vargas being the pivot point, and that was one that he landed on. I don't know that in general I don't know if there's like a spot like that today to go to, Jake, on this slate. But Berrios, I think, is a pivot there where you could see the pivot for Bauer. And maybe if Bauer stinks and he gets lit up by Minnesota, and we do have Minnesota having a pretty decent chance of being the top stack on the day, it could be a similar situation to that one with Vargas and you. And I think that's what I'm at least thinking about with this kind of situation.
Yeah, that was a sick call, by the way, by Chris. I had a little bit of Vargas, but to write him up and say he was a play you were targeting heavily is completely different. So nice job by him. It helped me a little bit from that as well. But yeah, definitely known more for Awesemo.com rather than The Bachelor and The Bachelor in Paradise. But yeah, that's a good point by you.
I'm glad that didn't go unnoticed. My very dry selling of our channel.
No, I caught that because I watched him on those actually. So
ooh,
yeah.
wow.
Everyone knows I watched The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, all that stuff.
Of course. That's what you're known for. That's your brand. You're waiting to get recruited mostly.
Actually, I'm not, but I do like watching it.
I think your girlfriend would get it if you were like, sorry, babe, I got to do The Bachelor or The Bachelorette.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd be thrilled about that. Did we talk about, okay, so we talked about Bauer, we talked about Berrios, we talked about Corbin.
So Maria wants to talk in the chat, and assuming that is actually a lady behind the handle, we do want to support the women in DFS because the women in DFS are doing a good job out there, and I think go under recognized out in the world out there with so much toxic masculinity out there, Jake. So we got to support the ladies. Wants to know about Joey Lucchesi, who has got the lowest team total on the day, a 3.6 implied runs going against Washington, and Washington kind of terrifying versus lefty pitching. So I didn't get to a ton of Lucchesi. I did get a little bit, but I don't know. His strikeout stuff's been better, but not quite good enough that I think he can beat a pretty strong Nationals lineup who's now back at full health. But what about you and Lucchesi?
I did get to more Lucchesi than the field on my dummy crunch, which I'm not really worried about. I don't know that the Nats are a team that I love targeting against, even with this low total. Strikeout-wise, like Rendon scares me, Turner scares me, Robles scares me. So that's 1, 2, 3 right off the bat. But Lucchesi does have a good changeup, and that can obviously be very effective against righties. So for 9K, I did get to more of him. Like I said, I'm just going a little bit of a different direction than Bauer tonight, it's looking like. So he's going to be one of those guys that gets mixed in there along with Barrios and, of course, Corbin.
Yeah, Lucchesi just doesn't project that well, I think, is part of the issue. He's 9K on DraftKings, and he's projected for 15.6 points according to our projections at Awesemo.com. So it's hard for me to get there when I also see this Nationals lineup, who on paper they actually have been hitting lefties well as the active lineup, which has been getting on base 345, WRC plus of 109, batting average of 272. So they're making good production here. Obviously, San Diego is going to be a park that favors pitching across the board pretty much. Just across the board in every stat. So that's going to be a good thing for Lucchesi, but Washington can certainly nickel and dime you and death by 100 cuts sort of situation. And that gives me enough pause on Lucchesi that I didn't see a need for a ton there.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Like, you can make a case, like, you can definitely poke holes in all these pitchers, as I've tried to with Bauer. So, I don't think there's really a wrong answer up here. There's not like one Chris Sale spot that he's 10-5 that I think you have to play tonight. So if you feel great about one of these pitchers, just like choose your guy and go heavy on them. And you're not going to have to worry about ownership all that much relatively on a 5-game slate.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, let's move down the pitching hierarchy, I guess. And if there's somebody who you have in between, I don't even think there anybody is actually. Well, I guess, we should talk about Tyler Skaggs because he's going to have some ownership on him. I didn't get there at all, to be honest. I don't think he's a good pitcher. And I think going against Oakland, I think he's going to get smacked around today. And I don't have a ton of Oakland stacks, but I have enough going against Skaggs that it just wasn't an option I wanted. But what about you and Tyler Skaggs at just a hair under 9K on DraftKings?
I think Skaggs is a okay pitcher, or maybe possibly even above average. I'm not sure where I stand exactly on him, but for tonight, I got under the field, which I'm okay with. I like some of these Oakland bats quite a bit. Pinder, Chapman, Chris Davis, Piscotty, even Kana hits lefties really well. So I just don't see it being an easy matchup. I don't see him deserving of 20+% ownership if he sticks there. So I got under on him. So I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah, I just think it's a spot where I'd rather go the other way personally. If he's going to be 25% owned, which is our most recent ownership projection for him, I'd rather just go some other spots. And Oakland just has a ton of power. I mean, their lineup collectively has a 4.1% home run rate. They also just a ton of isolated power on paper. The active lineup is a 210 ISO. At least it's a confirmed lineup. So yeah, their confirmed lineup is a 210 ISO, also 119 WRC plus. So they are hitting well. And in a park, again, Angels Stadium has been a strong hitting park on the year for home runs for everything besides triples. So I really don't have a problem going to Oakland. I would much prefer Oakland to Skaggs personally. What about J.A. Happ, who's a little bit cheaper and also projected for slightly more ownership?
I got 29.3% of Happ, and he was 29% owned. We just got an ownership update just now, so I'm going to plug that in and see. Looks like he jumped up a little bit. He's one that I'm pretty indifferent on. Like, he had that one really awesome start maybe 2 or 3 starts ago where he struck out like 10 in 6 innings, but he hasn't been a guy I've been super impressed with. So going up against these Toronto hitters, like, again, it's at the top. You get Sogard there. I know it's lefty, but he's just a pest. Drives up the pitch count. Super patient, like just a really good real-life hitter. He's really frustrating for DFS when your pitcher's going up against him. And Astudillo is obviously the same way, but he's hitting 9th. I'm targeting Grichuk. I'm targeting Lourdes Gurriel, Teoscar Hernandez. Those are 3 guys that I really, really like, along with Vlad. So there's some underpriced Toronto Blue Jays against Happ that I'm also interested in, but I don't see myself making a major stand on Happ tonight.
Yes, as you mentioned, Happ has gone up a little bit now. We have him at 34% projected ownership on DraftKings, makes him the number 3 pitcher pretty clearly on the slate. And I'm not a big Happ believer. And having both the eye test from having watched him, it just seems like he's not getting a ton of action on his pitches. And I didn't see the 10 strikeout game, so that might be maybe I just saw him on a bad day. But I think the game versus Baltimore was really the one where I watched him at length. It was just like, God, I had him a lot that night too, and I thought he was kind of due for a bounce back. And just everything was a meatball over the plate over and over again. And now he's in Toronto. We just saw a ton of production yesterday for both Toronto and the Yankees. Rogers Center has been a good hitting park as well in the year. And Happ, there's a lot of righties here. Happ has always been worse versus righties. I think he's been bad on the year, and I would much rather have Toronto stacks than Happ myself a little bit because the price works. But Yeah, I'd prefer to go to Toronto, even though we do have Toronto being higher owned relative to their chances of being a top stack.
Right. So that usually happens with the top value stack. They go a little bit over owned, but as long as they still have at least an okay chance of being the like top stack on the night, according to the tool, I'm okay with playing them. I'd rather play Toronto as 2-mans or 3-mans though, like mini stacks, secondary stacks, that type of thing.
Yeah, today kind of feels like a 4-3-1 night to me, even though I'm still trying to get to 5-mans, but I did end up with a little more fours. I guess on a slate like this, Jake, would you be more inclined to go with fives, fours, 5-3s, 5-2s? What would you do?
So I run everything, but so like I'll run 5-3. Like you guys can watch me do it in 10 minutes here. Hopefully we get one more lineup, and then I'll actually probably need two more lineups. Then I'll start. But I'll run like 150 5-3s, 150 5-2s, 150 4-3s, and then 5 nakeds. Depending on the slate size, that'll change. Like I'll run 4-2s on a 3-game slate or a 4-game slate, something like that. But yeah, you're gonna see the 4-3s. The less you stack, the better it's gonna project out. So don't get fooled by like a couple points in projection and run like a 3-3-2 like on a 15-game slate. I don't think that's necessary, but yeah, I think I'd be more likely to play like 5-2-1, 4-3, that type of thing, rather than 5-3 on a night like tonight, especially if I was hand building.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's see, got people. Okay, well, I don't want to talk about this side yet, but let's go to the cheap pitchers. And why not? Why not just hit him? Somebody in the chat, Kyle, saying Edwin Jackson is probably going to win someone a GPP tonight. We always talk about the Paul Blackburn tonight, our award of the night, of course, and the historical award that goes to the cheapest worst pitcher who could be in a tournament-winning lineup. And tonight in particular, Edwin Jackson is going to be big-time leverage against a incredibly highly, possibly one of the highest-owned stacks of the Yankees you'll find in any team really in general recently. Edwin Jackson, though, so bad on the year, 2.2 whip, 16.5 hits per 9 allowed, a 5.6 xFIP, a 7.1% home run rate, also not missing bats really, an 8.1% swing strike rate, giving up 46% hard contact. To be clear, all these numbers are bad in case you were wondering at home. Any Edwin Jackson interest at all, given the fact that he's super cheap and theoretically the biggest leverage you can find?
So he is big leverage. I definitely agree with that. Like if he does have a good start, like the Yankee stack's gonna probably be dead. So if he goes 5-6 innings somehow, I don't know. I think if I'm going to a different like a leverage pitcher like that, I would go to one of these other guys. Just because I think Jackson is really not good at all. Like there's no real redeeming qualities against him. So I just have a tough time seeing him get swings and misses. Like if the Yankee stack does poorly, Jackson could have a good real life game without without you needing him to be in the top lineup of the night. So I don't know. If that makes sense, I don't really like Jackson tonight.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the strikeout upside being there. This particular Yankees lineup, and actually their team as a whole on the year, just a 21.8% K rate, which is under league average. And Jackson, not a strikeout guy either way, because again, he's not missing bats. He's not overpowering. He only has 6.6 Ks per 9. So it would be unexpected if he were to have a day worthy of rostering, I guess. And just Jake mentioned, I think you could limit damage, but that's mostly probably going to be in the way of fly balls and not giving up runs when the bases are, loaded or have two guys on. So there's ways he can do that and ruin the stack, but probably not enough to actually have value as a pitcher, one would think.
Yeah, you put it way better than I did. So
thanks, Jake. That's why we're a team, buddy. How about the other cheap guys here? I think you can make a better case for Ariel Hirado personally, because he is going against the Baltimore team. Their active lineup strikes out 26% of the time. And Hirado did have a nice day in Texas against Kansas City, who I would say is a better hitting team than Baltimore, maybe a little bit less power, but overall, I would say they are a better team. He had a 20 fantasy point day the last time out. Any Hirado or Hess, either of those guys coming up for you?
Yeah, I have an embarrassing amount of Hirado, and I think little to no Hess, which I am, ecstatic about. The Rangers are by far, the Rangers are where I'm going tonight. So once we get to stacks, we can talk more about them and game theory and stuff like that. But Hirado also works as a correlation play. You mentioned the strikeouts for the Orioles. That lineup does strike out quite a bit. And then Hirado can actually miss bats versus righties. So at least he can miss bats against one side. And assuming there's not like 8 lefties in this lineup, I'm okay playing him and you're just hoping for 5 innings. You hope he gets you 2 to 3 strikeouts and just kind of limits damage, because he's a guy I'm more comfortable with in terms of like my last guy in, rather than Edwin Jackson, because I'm already playing a ton of Rangers anyways. So I might as well have their pitcher and hope he can sneak out a win here.
Also, the San Diego lineup just came in if you wanted that. And also, if you watching at home would like that. Or did it just come in or has it been out already?
Let's see. It just came in now.
Okay, yes. We're still down 2. We still need the Angels and the Orioles, but everybody else is now in besides those 2. So we're making progress. But yeah, so I'm with you on Gerardo. I just think the strikeouts are there enough for him. At least they're available. I don't know that he has enough stuff to get there, but as Jake mentioned, he has given up. He has gotten some strikeouts against the against one side of the plate at least, and that's a positive. Going back to last year, though, it's not very impressive. If anything, he might be pitching outside of his depth this year, but getting 6.7 Ks per 9, but he's also had just a 6.2% swinging strike rate. And going back to last year, he's only had 4.7 Ks per 9. So look, Gerardo, not a good pitcher by any stretch, but on a slate like this, his salary could open some stuff up. And also, I shamefully will admit, this is a safe place on this live stream that a few hundred people are watching. I will be rostering a little bit of David Hess today just because the price worked and he came up in the projections. And, it's not going to go well. But I know that, and I'm okay with that. I've made peace with it. I've meditated on it. But I don't hate having a little bit of Hess just because, who knows? It's MLB DFS.
So he's 4,200. So he's less than Edwin Jackson. And I think, like, theoretically, there is more strikeout upside in a guy like Hess than Gerardo. Or, I'm sorry, than Edwin Jackson. So, like, you see Hess has games with 5 and 6 strikeouts. He is capable of that. Like, the roof is also open in Toronto. That's why you're seeing a high implied total here for, or a higher implied total, I think, for the Yankees. But yeah, he's $4,200 and he's pitching, and you could take a bat or 2 against him as well if you really wanted to get weird in the same lineup.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's fair. And Hess can certainly give up production. Obviously, he's not a good pitcher by any stretch, but these 5-game slates, you have to think about some different angles and be willing to take some risks if you're trying to get something. Marcos in the chat saying, David Hess, multiple question marks. Look, for me, I'm playing a 20 max. I think I'm comfortable knowing a couple lineups, like let's say between the 1 to 5 range. I'm just burning on making different lineups and trying to get unique with it. I'm willing to take that risk. I could see if you were a person who wanted to block Hess out, but he kind of occurred naturally in my projections. Like lineups that wanted Corbin and didn't want any of the mid-tier pitchers. So if he gets me 10 points today, I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Right. So, like, I think the important thing, however many lineups you're building, is you just want a unique lineup like a unique portfolio. If you're making 20 or 150, whatever it is, so you don't want the same lineup construction all the time. So, like, you might have a few lineups that stick in there that are like Bauer and Hess rather than Bauer and Gerardo, which is going to be a much more popular combo. So that $2K difference, $2,200 difference, is worth it just to have in your portfolio of lineups.
Yep, I would agree. I think you're right. Viewing it like a stock portfolio, you're trying to get some different things in there, and that is a different look that a lot of people won't have because everybody's gonna have the same reaction of, oh my God, don't play David Hess. And I agree with that take for Edwin Jackson, but I think the Rangers have shown enough weaknesses and Hess has shown just enough potential to be perhaps less terrible than he has been. Look, we already know what the Paul Blackburn's going to be for me. It's David Hess.
Mine's going to be probably on the other side, but
yeah, they're both perfectly viable candidates.
Yeah.
All right, Jake, we're at the halfway point. Dong pick time. Updating us on the Dong pick. So there have been some changes in the leaderboard, Jake. I am now, I guess I should do first place first. Our old pal Emac is still in first place, 12 dongs on a bit of a cold streak by Emac standards, though, especially. But he's still on the lead with 12 on the year. I am now in second place with 10 correct picks and 10 total dongs on the year. And percentage-wise, also number 2. So feeling good about that. Haven't been throwing in too many ones in the chat. Just trying to play it close to the vest, Jake. But you are third, right behind me with 9, and bringing up the rear, the Chubster, the pizza roll extraordinaire connoisseur, Mr. Josh Engelman with 8 correct picks and 9 total dongs because he does have 1 double dong. So it's a tight race here, and hopefully we can take Emac out by the end of the month. Don't tell Emac that, Jake. But who is your home run pick? I'll let you go first.
All right, it's got to be a Ranger, I guess, off your favorite play of the night, David Hess.
Please classify that as my favorite play every time we talk about him.
I think that's your favorite play.
Outing David Hess will be what I'm known for.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I guess I'll take Nomar Mazara. He's one of my highest exposed hitters.
Okay, Nomar Mazara is an interesting pick. I wonder where we'd fall in the Josh model. We need a replacement Josh model for when he's not in the chat.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I'm going to do a weird one. And this one, very diminishing returns potentially. But I'm in on the guy really heavily ownership-wise again. He's been in my videos that I've done, the Four Corners video. He was my one-off for 2 straight days. Show Ohtani, step on up. You've hit a home run in 2 straight games. Let's go for 3.
I like it. I like
He's
it
just
a lot.
so cheap. I have a lot of him. He's going against Fires in a good home run park. He's looking normal. I'm on board with him from a DFS perspective and from our little game. But 3 home runs in a row is pushing it probably for him.
No, it's not. That guy's a really, really good hitter.
Okay, well, it's pushing it for me because I also have had 2 correct calls in a row this week with Javi Baez and Ohtani. So let's go. Let's go 3 for 3.
I think I just went like 4 for 6 or 4 for 7. It can be done. Even the worst of us can get 4 out of 7 or 5 out of 6 type of thing.
3 in a row is actually. I wonder if we did that at all last year.
Has anybody had 3 in a row? I'm pretty sure me and Josh both had like a 5 in a row streak last year. Like it was kind of absurd.
I can double check that actually. Let's see. Last year we had. Oh, you know what? Josh at one point had 4 in a row. You at one point had 5 in a row. Wow. All right, that's going to be tough. And I had 3 in a row at one point last year, so it's not even that special. All right, well, screw me then, I guess.
I mean, it happens like once a year, maybe per person. Like that,
Wait, actually, you had 2 5 in a row. What a streak hitter you are, Jake.
I had 2 5 in a rows. Jeez.
Yes, you did.
Wow. What happened to me this year? It's still early. Still early.
No, you lost your juju.
Yeah, must have.
And of course, your old pal Emac, his pick is the most important because he is in first place. I'll continue to give him that shout out as long as he's in first place. Luke Voigt is his pick. Unavoidable Luke Voigt for Emac.
Unavoidable. All right. That's Josh's guy, but he can have him for tonight, I suppose.
Yeah, going for his back to his beefy first base boys. Emac is going back to the strategy that works the best.
Yeah. Exactly.
Here we go. Josh has Ohtani at number 7 on his list, Voigt at number 6. And Mazara is number 5. So there you go for Josh's list.
Mazara's number 5. Good list. Although he should be probably 3 or 4 spots higher behind maybe Gary Sanchez, but that's all good. He's probably got 4 Yankees in front of him. Oh, okay. Grichuk is up there for him, I guess.
Oh, okay. There we go. So Josh is picking 2. He wants to get back in the mix. Now he's in last place, like a big old dork that he is. Getting there. No, Grichuk is actually a really good pick, and I support it fully.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of good picks, like picks I can get behind, like Kana. Someone also mentioned Grichuk. Yeah, there's a lot of bad pitchers on the mound tonight for just a 5-game slate.
We are doing a good job collectively, both us and you guys out there doing a good job with home run picks. Also, just I guess a quick little plug. If you want to go to my Four Corners video right now, we are giving away a free month of Osmo Plus on there. I know I'm supposed to do the cross show plugging, but it's the one show that actually has comments that people can do and interact with, and people are on there with. So go check it out. If you comment a double dong pick in there, you can win a free month of Osmo Plus. It's a short slate, but the double dongs are hard to do. And if anybody hits one today, decent chance somebody's going to get it. So we're trying to give that month away. So go on to that video on the YouTube channel right now, and you can drop a comment with your double dong pick. All right, Jake, let's go to the stacks. Let's go to your number 1 stack first. And I'm actually curious who it'll be. So tell me who you're getting.
The Rangers, just so many Rangers. So I get it. The Yankees are right up there for me as well. I think, in fact, they're probably my number 2. I just don't see a reason to get different. Looking at the top stack tool, first of all, I just don't think anyone is as chalky they should be, and it's the top stack tool also agrees with me. So while they're high owned, the Rangers are, and the Yankees as well, they just have such a good chance of being the top stack that they're not high enough owned based on how they project. So, yeah, give me all those Rangers. Yankees coming in a little bit behind, which may be a hot take. I don't know. Maybe not. But take your pick with those 2, honestly. Who is it for you?
I would favor the Yankees a bit just because I don't really like the leadoff guys in Texas that much. And not that that's a big deal, but I don't want to pay $5,100 for Danny Santana. And I also just don't really like Delino DeShields. So they didn't naturally kind of come up for me a lot. And Andrews too. I mean, I really don't have an issue with him, but I'd prefer to go down the order a little bit for that stack. So I do have a good amount of the Cabrera, Odor, the cheaper guys there, Guzman, even some Kiner Falefa, even though he is mostly garbage and pretty much every way. So yeah, I don't mind the Texas stack, but I think the Yankee stack is a lot more appealing because you got a bunch of different ways you can go there. Really, the only guy who's not hitting home runs in that lineup, I guess, would be, well, I guess a couple. You could say Maybin, Ursula, and LeMahieu are all under league average in terms of home runs, but you have a lot of guys there with pop. Even Tyro Estrada has also been mashing it and has dual position eligibility down towards the bottom of the order. So I think there's a lot of ways you can move with the Yankees that you can't really do with the Rangers, and that's sort of why I'm there. Combined with Edwin Jackson just being so bad, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like I can't say anything bad about the Yankees. Same thing with the Rangers. So if you would have said, like the Orioles are your top stack of the night, I would have been like, wow, it would have raised my eyebrows a little bit, or like Cleveland or something like that. But yeah, I think for everyone, it's basically going to be Texas or the Yankees. So yeah, they're going to be super chalky. Don't freak out when you see those ownerships. You can still be different on a 5-gamer. It's not too difficult to make unique lineups on this slate.
Also, somebody's saying, Brandon in the YouTube chat saying that it's an extreme pitcher's ump in the Oakland game today, or the Oakland Angels game. So I think that's more of a tiebreaker thing for me. Like, I like the Angels enough where I wouldn't favor it, but I guess that will help Fires out a little bit if he can just kind of keep the ball away from guys. He's not striking anybody out that much, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think Adam and Laffy both mentioned it on the deeper dive. It like, that's reflected in the Vegas totals and like the Vegas line and stuff like that. So maybe like a walk boost or a K boost, depending on what site you look at for umpire data, like that could make a difference, or like tiebreaker or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's not that big of a deal to me. That, like, if it's reflected in Alex's projections, then it will be reflected in my lineups.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. So we talked about Texas and the Yankees. Those are the two that are pretty much far and away the best ones. So let's go the other way. Which leverage stack going against a popular pitcher do you have the most of?
I don't know that I have the most of them, but like on a times the field basis, I think the Twins I want to get a good amount of, just because they just have so much power. They're obviously overpriced when you compare them to, like, you just compare their implied total and total salary compared to like Texas or the Yankees, and it's not even close. But the Twins actually are going quite a bit underowned. Like, they just have so much power. They've shown it time and time again this season. Marwin or Adrianza, like, Astudillo, you can fit in a couple of these guys and make the stack somewhat affordable. So while it's a tough matchup for them, it's also a tough matchup for Bauer. And you're getting a ton of leverage on a 50% owned pitcher, or 40+%, I guess now.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier in the show, but I would agree with Minnesota. I didn't get a ton of them. I did have a good amount, I guess, a sprinkling enough, more than the field of Eddie Rosario thrown in, because I think if anybody's going to benefit, I think he would be him, maybe like there being two guys on for him, and then he can get it in. And I guess you can make an argument, too, for some of the guys. It just, the thing that sucks, same thing as yesterday, too, going against Cleveland for them. And the Minnesota lineup ended up paying dividends yesterday, but the prices really aren't down for these matchups at all because they've been so good on the year. I think it kind of comes out in the wash. And I would like them a little bit cheaper going against Bauer because that's sort of the leverage I like the most. So you're paying like a pretty much full price, a little bit underpriced, I guess, but really not much. So if I'm going to take a guy who's full priced, I would rather go with Rosario because he's really capable of home runs, and Bauer does struggle slightly more versus lefties, as you would expect.
Yeah, just a lot of very talented hitters, especially near the top for this Twins lineup. So yeah, it's not like a stack you need 20% of or anything like that if you're making 150, but there would be one that I would have a couple shares of if I was making 20, or I would probably have one of them in a 3-max type of thing as a main stack, just in case things go crazy for Bauer.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Definitely instant leverage on the field, given the Bauer's ownership is still going to be very high, above 40%. I think it's everywhere 40%.
Yeah, it was. I think him and Corbin were actually tied in the last ownership update.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Bauer a little bit less owned on FanDuel, but on Yahoo, on Yahoo and DraftKings, they are both neck and neck for an ungodly amount of ownership. Let's go back to Corbin then, because we're not on the hedge stack, I guess, but the Padres lineup did come out at some point during the show, and now that top five, a lot of home run power for that top five. I've talked about it before, but I have a color-coded chart that I look at to just reference stats fast to be able to tell who's bad and good while not having to look at the screen too closely. And really a lot of green going against Corbin, a guy who's given up some decent power on the year. It is still a positive pitching park, so that is going to be an additive for Corbin. But any more interest in the Padres now that we have this lineup?
Nothing unexpected is in there, right? Tatis, I guess he was the question mark.
Myers got bumped up, I
Okay.
think. And yeah, and Tatis is officially in, but still really highly priced hitting leadoff.
So good value, I think, overall for the Padres. I think it'd be tough to argue against that. The one guy or the couple guys that maybe overpriced a little bit are Tatis and Renfroe, but in total, like you're getting a $2,800 catcher, you're getting Ian Kinsler at a second base position for 32, Myers and Franmil Reyes at 38 and 4K. So there's good prices all around. I think for one-offs, they're perfectly fine if you're just looking to get some leverage against Corbin, but they're not a team that I'm trying to stack up a ton of. I don't know. I just really respect Corbin, and I think whenever you get a team that's too low priced, especially on a shorter slate, people just they toss in one or two of the guys that are underpriced. So if I was stacking the Padres, I would be trying to force in Tatis or Renfroe, the guys that maybe people won't go to as much.
Yeah, those guys are going to be significantly less owned. Both those guys, Tatis and Renfroe, are under 5% ownership on DraftKings and similar elsewhere as well. Whereas Myers, Machado, Reyes, those guys are all priced up, or not priced up, ownership up for the most part because of the lower prices, as Jake mentioned. Yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of power in that lineup that's now closer congregated. And then if they do get to Corbin, so if, Jake and I are both, I guess, not heavily on the Padres, I think I would be more inclined to go a little bit more if we're building lineups as we did this. It's the bullpen is really bad for Washington, which I think is noteworthy too, because if they get to Corbin, there's no guy coming around the galley there. What is the phrase I'm thinking of? no cowboy coming down the canyon, so to speak, who's going to bail them out of that bullpen. It is a really bad bullpen that gives up even worse production than any of the other pitchers on the slate besides David Hess. So, yeah, it could be really good for San Diego if it breaks well with Corbin. So I wouldn't mind San Diego stacks if you're going that way.
Yeah, they actually came up now that I'm uploading the new projections. So I guess Alex his numbers must have liked the lineup that San Diego rolled out. It looks like a good lineup against a guy like Corbin. Just a bunch of righties, and then obviously you got the pitcher spot. Lucchesi is a lefty, but that's not one you're really worried about. So maybe Corbin's K projection came down just a little bit, and obviously the San Diego stack probably jumped up a tiny bit. But yeah, I still think I'm going to be on a bunch of Corbin. It's just a matter of, am I going to be a little bit below the field now, whereas before I was a little bit above. So looking at this new crunch I just did, there's not a lot of pitchers that I'm taking major stands on. Like maybe Barrios is the guy I'm actually taking the biggest stand on.
That seems fair. I mean, on a slate like this, you can take a stand on bats, and that's the main way to guide it. Also, our old pal Emac, my old pal in the situation, the cavalry coming over the hill, that's a similar one. Should have known that Emac would know the folksy expression I was going to go to. But yeah, that was what I was thinking. There's nobody's going to bail out Patrick Corbin today. Good friends. That is all. All right, we got a question here from Miguel Ra in the premium Slack. We'll keep talking stacks in a second, but I wanted to hit his question because we talked through the pitchers already. Would you go Jay Happ or Trevor Bauer in cash? I think that's got to be Bauer.
Yeah, it's Bauer. So yeah. I just talked bad about Bauer or whatever for a long time, but on the last crunch I did get more than I expected of Bauer, but still not quite up to the field at 40+%.
And then a question from Bougie in the chat. Barrios and Bauer DK pitchers duel. Would you play both? I think if you can afford them. I do have some Corbin Bauer. I don't quite have Barrios Bauer. It just wasn't an approach that occurred for me naturally and wasn't one I wanted to force in. But I don't hate paying up for the high-priced pitchers. I think people probably won't have both a lot today. What do you think about a Barrios Bauer combination for DK, Jake?
Yeah, that won't be super heavily owned. It looks like Barrios is hovering around 20. So that's fine with me. If he's asking if I have an issue playing pitchers in the same game, I'd never do on DraftKings on the two pitcher site. So Yahoo, same thing there. Like it's tough to get a win anyways. So theoretically you're trying to lock in one win. But if it's two pitchers that have strikeout upside that project well, like doesn't really matter to me. I'm always for that.
Yep, I think that's about right for me too. And yeah, on FanDuel, I think it's a little more relevant, but for the 4 points on DK or whatever, you can just get a couple strikeouts or even with it. So I'd care more about the opportunity and the matchup than the win total or the win bonus rather.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Let's talk about the Angel stack real fast because I did mention my show, Ohtani Love. I do have a lot of Angels as more mini stacks than full stacks because could have gone here as full stacks, but I really mostly like Trout, Ohtani, La Stella, Pujols, and Calhoun, which is, I guess that I just named the full stack, but Just didn't get there as much, I think, overall with those guys because they're priced up a little bit for some spots, and Trout is appropriately priced for Mike Trout now, which is a positive, I would say. But what about the Angels for you, Jake? They are the only other team with over a 5 implied run total besides the Yankees and the Rangers.
Yeah, I think they're going a little overlooked by me. I kind of wish I got to more of them, but I'm just so heavy on the Rangers right now and some of these Yankees bats, specifically Emax guy tonight, unavoidable, that everyone else is kind of coming in as mini stacks and such. So not a ton of Angels. Looking at where I got Trout, I got him. Yeah, I still always get like at least 10% Trout. I got 13% Trout right now, which is about half the field. So never really comfortable with that. Ohtani, same thing, about half the field right now. So we'll see if anything changes if we get another ownership update or rankings update or anything like that. But yeah, those would be the two guys I'd be concerned about fading against fly ball Mike Fiers.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trout and Ohtani are clearly a cut ahead, but I wouldn't sleep on Stella either. He was a nice person I had in the stack I had yesterday, and I've come around on him where his home runs have really picked up on the year. And again, we've talked about it a bunch in these videos on Live Before Lock and the Four Corners video, and I think on the strategy show you guys have talked about it. Really, all the shows on the channel we've talked about it. The Angels Park is a good hitting park now, and it's kind of been they've changed the walls there a little bit, and I think things have gotten significantly improved there, especially for home runs, but for everything in general. And it's a nice spot here for a guy like La Stella, who hasn't been a great hitter overall. I mean, I guess power hitter over the last year plus, but he is starting to get there home run wise because of being in the park and doesn't strike out. And he's at a reasonable price now. He was insanely high price for a while there hitting leadoff, but yeah, La Stella is a guy who I would not sleep on too much. And Calhoun too can still do it. He's not going to give you a lot of value anywhere else, but he can get on base. I mean, we can actually knock it out of the park. Can't really get on base that well. So different ways to go.
Sure.
Any Oakland for you on the other side going against Skaggs? We talked about this a little bit before, but circling back.
Any Oakland?
Yeah.
Let's see where they're coming up for me. Not a ton of Oakland either. Piscotty's the guy that I got the most of, and then it kind of falls off a cliff to guys like Pinder, Semien, Davis. So they're gonna get. Man, I really got very little of Chris Davis, which also worries me. But yeah, they're not coming up quite as much for me as I thought I was going to get. I like them individually, so I'm hoping I still have them a bunch as two mans and one-offs when I run 5 naked type of thing or 5-2-1s. But yeah, as a full stack, they're not a priority for me.
Yeah, I don't mind them quite as much because I think the prices really do work well. And maybe there's some stuff that's wrong with Chris Davis. He's been kind of banged up throughout the year, but he's going to be 20% owned on the day at 3,900. I think the price kind of justifies that ownership. And he does have a ton of power. Again, going against Skaggs, a guy who gives up a lot of hard contact to both sides of the plate, but especially to righties. So I like this spot here for Oakland, and I think it's a nice one to go to them. They are going to have ownership on them, as you would expect on a 5-game slate, because they do have power. But the prices work, and I think they could – I guess they're going to be overowned relative to their chances of being the top stack according to the top stacks tool. But I like their power, and I think the value is there, and their value is more reflected as a top stack. So that's a good combination, I think, of power plus value.
Yeah, they're similar to for me to like San Diego. So just a little bit overowned, but really good value.
Classy reference from Playa Fly in the chat. I was going to write it out to credit it, but since we're saying it right now, he made a streetcar named Desire reference, which I feel like a lot of people, I assume that's one really not in your toolbox, Jay.
Not in my toolbox at all.
A classic play and also a Marlon Brando movie that I think one of his breakout roles maybe, but he is an abusive husband who at one point his wife, I think, leaves him and he yells Stella really aggressively.
Very uplifting part of the show. Good segment there.
Well, I mean, it's a classic movie, and I guess you probably wouldn't make that one so much now. Where I think he was kind of a bad guy, but also kind of the protagonist. You probably can't have an abusive protagonist.
That's always interesting to me when you have the protagonist that's like a bad guy, like Walter White. So it's like you're rooting for him, but he's like not a good guy at all. So it's always interesting to me when shows can do that.
You gotta have the redemptive qualities that come out, and I'm not sure. I haven't seen a streetcar named Desire in a very long time, if ever fully. I just feel like I know parts of it, so I can't say for sure that he's ever gets his redemption. But hey, we'll both watch that. That'll be our homework. We'll watch a streetcar named Desire, Jake. Anybody else? Actually, what about Cleveland? We didn't talk so much about them. We talked about Jose Barrios, and we talked about, I guess, his kind of potential here as a pivot to Bauer. But Cleveland too could be interesting. I mean, Barrios has given up some home runs on the year, not a crazy amount, but above league average, and not getting the same amount of swinging strikes as he was a year ago, but still not bad. Not a guy I'd want to go out of my way to target, but Cleveland's got 4.5 implied runs for them. So any interest in them going against Barrios?
They're another one that's I'm gonna get more as one-offs. Like Ramirez is just ridiculously underpriced. I mean, I still don't think there should be anything wrong with him. I don't know why all of a sudden he would be a terrible hitter, but he's just underpriced. So that's kind of your cash guy there. And then Lindor, I just think, is a really good hitter. So he's got the platoon split no matter who he goes up against because he's a switch hitter. So he's a guy I got to 13% of, which is basically right where his ownership is at right now. So after those two guys, I am pretty below the field on everyone else.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I like the idea of Cleveland a little bit because I think the ownership is not terrible for him. And they do have some guys who are like, I'm starting to come around a little bit on Cleveland. I think they're still pretty bad relative to where they were last year, but they do have their moments of usefulness. And if Barrios were a little bit higher owned, I think I'd be more interested in them. But under 20% doesn't feel like great leverage and feels kind of unnecessary because I don't love their potential that much.
Right.
All right. Looking through questions here. Anyone on any O's tonight? How much are you getting in terms of O's stacks?
Not much. Let's see. The guy that's coming up for me, or I guess I'm getting to some of their hitters. I actually got to 6% David Hess. So there you go, Chris.
There we go.
But no Baltimore hitters above 5%. It's looking like, yeah. So there you go. Just the Rangers for me. Need a nice Marlins victory, 16-0 fashion.
That's all we've ever wanted, I'm sure, out of the Marlins are world beaters now, Jake.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Like, you can't even recommend playing a pitcher against them. Otherwise, you're just a terrible tout or whatever.
No, you're just asking for trouble if you recommend anybody going against the Marlins. That's tout 101, the class that we don't have. Anybody else you get? Are you getting any Washington here? Because they were one I probably should have forced my way to because they just are so good at hitting. And Lucchesi is good enough that I guess I didn't feel the need to go there, but he does give up some home runs and just no ownership on these guys, even though, and they're also not, to be clear, not projected to be a top stack well by Osmo either. But that Vegas total, it seems really low given that it's Lucchesi and the Nationals are very good versus lefties.
Yeah, I'm just getting all the expensive bats basically. And getting bits and pieces of these cheap hitters, or these cheap SP2s. So I'm very, very low on Washington tonight. Yan Gomes is the guy I got the most of, but again, under 5% for them. Couple Robles shares, couple Trey Turner shares. That's what I'm kind of worried about because, I guess Lucchesi, he's a 2-pitch pitcher, and that always worries me. When you've got a bunch of good hitters in the lineup, they might figure you out the second and third times through the order. So, I guess I didn't really get to Washington.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bit of a blind spot in terms of my lineups tonight because usually whenever a team just grades out as being one of the better hitting teams on the slate, like Minnesota does a lot of nights, I just try to make sure I get some in there because a hitter can get going. I mean, they're going to be variant. They're going to have some ups and downs, but a guy like Lucchesi who doesn't have elite strikeout stuff, I think he's really good and probably a little bit underappreciated in that front. And some of the matchups, I would certainly have him, but this is not one where I'd want to go to him. And at 25% ownership for him on DraftKings, I wouldn't mind some Nationals leverage here, at least as many stacks.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm fine with that. Like Turner would be a guy I would get to. I think I would get to the Nats more if I was hand building because you've got some nice prices on Turner and Robles. They just don't project out very well at all. I mean, a 3.7 implied total is going to do that in a pitcher's park.
Yeah, that's true. The projections are pretty poor for them overall, and nobody in double digits in terms of their scoring for the day. But yeah, like you have 6 hitters here above a 119 WRC plus in that top 7. And Dozier's the one who's lagging behind at 98. So it's a better hitting lineup than it may seem. And I think people overall have slept on the Nationals in general, and they're kind of coming around. They haven't had the big explosive day yet. You know, it's going to put them on the radar for everybody. But I think they're going to have it soon. Maybe not in this spot, but I think it's coming soon.
Yeah. Quick side note: do the Orioles know that they have a game tonight in an hour? Because they don't know the lineup out.
They're getting some barbecue. They're having a good time in Arlington.
Who are we waiting on? Were they saying VR in chat? I don't know. Usually when that happens, it's an injury. They're seeing if a guy can go, but
Maybe Severino?
oh yeah, he left last night right after his 3 dongs, or was that a couple nights ago? He had 3 dongs.
That was a couple nights ago. He got smashed in the face yesterday, I think, with 0.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Life comes at you fast there, Severino.
It does. Especially as a catcher. That's not the place I would want to play if I were up for a potential professional baseball playing career. Catcher seems tough on the knees, tough on the face, tough on everything.
I mean, yeah, anytime you can catch a 95-mile-per-hour fastball 150 times a game, that's definitely a profession I would like to get into. Although they are paid handsomely, so probably could be worse there.
And there was a catcher taken first overall in the draft this year, so that's something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Oregon State. I think the Orioles took some guy from Oregon State. I don't know his name offhand.
The next Pudge Rodriguez. There you have it.
Yeah, potentially. Or the next Joe Mauer, who would you say Joe Mauer lived up to the hype of his career as a guy who grew up in Minnesota?
Joe Mauer would have been received way differently if he was like if he had been in the league 10 or 15 years before when he was, because he's more of a slap hitter. He never had huge power, and like he was a quality player. He was one that could have made every MLB roster for the duration of his career, basically. But yeah, there's some bad feelings because he never had a 100 RBI season or whatever. Like, I don't know. I mean, he was a fine player, and yeah, I think for the most part he lived up to the hype.
Yeah, I mean, he was a good. Yeah, you're right. He's like kind of a classic. I mean, Ichiro too. Ichiro did kind of get the love, even though he was a slap hitter. But I guess you do it for 20 years. That'll give you.
Ichiro was just a different breed of hitter. I mean, that guy was incredible. Like Mauer, even if he was 75-80% of that, that's still a really good player.
Wait, no, hold on. This guy in the chat saying that no, he's a catcher. Adley Rushman, the #1 pick, Oregon State catcher, is what. Oh, sorry. I hate autoplay videos so much. Like, I know we don't do it with sound, but yeah, here we go. That's the guy. Adley Rushman, catcher from Oregon State. I knew my draft, even though I didn't follow it closely. So I'll wait for my apology, Adam Burse. I'll wait for it.
Perfect.
Adam's a regular here, so you don't really have to apologize. But if you want to, I'll certainly appreciate you being a man and acknowledging the fact that I'm super great at knowing #1 overall picks. Who are the Dong calls again? The Dong calls again. #1 in the clubhouse. EMAC went with Luke Voigt. Jake went with Nomar Mazara. I went with Sho Otani, the pride of Japan. And Josh went with Randall Grichuk, the pride of wherever Randall Grichuk is from, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know where Grichuk's from, but good-looking guy and good-looking player.
Tom M in the chat. Oh yeah, let's talk 1 second of late slate. Okay, Adam Bursa, my bad. I'll accept that. I would have liked the full sorry, like a classic Curb Your Enthusiasm, high quality sorry, but that's fair. I gotta bust new people's balls. It can't always be Sean V.
Yeah, that's true.
So this guy Tom M is asking in the chat, Skaggs for the late hammer. I would very much go the other way, but Jake, if you were doing a late slate out of this already micro slate, which pitcher would you want to go against?
So I think it's a 2-gamer. Let me see. I'm going to take a look at our night slate ownership, which you guys can get if you're a premium member. We don't have it out actually just yet. Is that right? We don't have night slate ownership out? Anyways, I'm sure we'll have it out. There is a slate on DraftKings. I know. I looked at it. I've been playing some more late slates in general, but I would imagine we are going to see some, actually, man, Skaggs might not be super heavily owned there because you got some cheap prices on all the bats in that slate. Like there's no Texas to pay up for. You've got a bunch of low implied totals. So maybe a lot of people just go Corbin and Lucchesi or something like that. And I would guess Skaggs maybe the 3rd highest owned pitcher on that slate. What's that?
I hate that. I hate when there's something like where there's an angle for the night slate where you have to go different than what I would do for a main slate. Like that's kind of why I don't like mini slates as much.
Oh, I think that's great. I mean, if you're using an optimizer, right, and you're accounting for ownership and all that, just because it's a completely different slate and people play it the same way, or they tilt enter, which is amazing. So, I mean, it's amazing if you're not tilt entering and you just commit to playing the shorter slate. So I've actually found some success on them. I think it's always nice to play like these late 3 and 4 gamers, especially like on Friday nights, because people just don't pay as much attention.
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing that Tom has always said. One of our founders of the company is that you can get the most leverage on ownership directly for pretty much every sport. But that's why I think he said he's found a lot of success in night slates. And we do the best night slate content in the business. I'll say that for us. Also, go use that promo code live before lock for half off your first month. Get in there for the night slate. If you're tilting over the main slate, like many people out there are, at least do it intelligently and use the data that we have, because night slate ownership is something to do that. But yeah, like for me, like if Skaggs is going to be like decently owned on the main slate and I come up with my opinion and I'm really dug in, like, yeah, I want to go to Oakland because Skaggs is going to have ownership. It's hard for me to then go to a night slate and be like, well, I guess if Skaggs is great, like I'll have him. And I just, that's a smart hedge and a way to do it. But I can't change my mind once my mind is set with that.
Oh, I can. I think it's great. Hedging is the best. It's very profitable in MLB DFS if you're doing it the correct way. So that's why I love max entering.
I hate it. I hate it for that stuff because like that's one where to me I want to take my stance with no ambiguity. Like going for Corbin and against Corbin, going for Lucchesi, going against Lucchesi. That I can get on board with. Going for Skaggs after I'm like no Skaggs in the main slate.
Yeah.
That would drive me nuts.
Well, it's Tom explained it to me. It's like it's just a good hedge too because like if you're sitting in a good spot with, let's say you played a ton of Skaggs in the main slate and your bats are doing well. You had Texas and they scored 12 runs in the first 3 innings. Maybe you just fade him on a slate. He's going to be even chalkier just in case and kind of, you're not necessarily locking in profit, but there's a good chance that one of those slates is going to be really profitable.
Okay, no, that's fair, and that's certainly the right way to do it. I feel like that's the one, like that's me being an old football player. Like I don't know, I like guys that just hit the line over and over again.
Yeah,
that's me ignoring analytics and just being like, it just makes me uncomfortable, and I formulate my opinion. It takes so much time to formulate these opinions, Jake. It's hard to walk it back.
Right, but as the information changes, so new slate, new day, sure. Daily fantasy, you should also adapt with that. If you don't, you're going to be left in the dust.
That is fair. That is a smart slate agnostic approach, and I would painfully have to do it if I were playing the late slate. But I'm not playing that late slate. I'll tell you what.
I might actually. We'll see how this hockey game's going. Might tilt enter.
We got 1 minute left to lock, so get your lineups in right now. By the time you hear that, we'll probably be even closer. So do your stuff, do your crunches, hit that like button too. We appreciate all the support that you guys can drum up. It's obviously a hard time sometimes putting together an hour plus long show for these 5-game slates. So we do the best we can, and the likes do help us kind of keep the lights on and feel good about ourselves. Jake and I both need the pat on the back.
Yeah. Real quick, Emac made a good point. If you guys want to check out my projections, if you're a premium member or whatever, I have projections on the site for tonight's showdown slate. So should be pretty exciting. Series tied 2-2.
Who do you got? What are you thinking for that slate? Give people the 1 minute elevator pitch.
Yeah, so I'm playing Boston 1, so Boston's top line. I mean, Bergeron, Pastrnak, Marchand. They're basically one of them, or probably 2 of them, are going to be in basically all of my lineups. So they're I think the best play by a mile. If it doesn't work out, then on to the next slate. But there's $20K up top in that big $10 that I'm chasing. So we will see. But my advice would just be to play the top Boston guys and fill in after that.
Yeah, and your old pal Emac has been doing well all season long in showdown NHL slates with Jake Harry's projections. So if you can't trust your old pal, who can you trust? So use that promo code live before lock. Actually, are they still premium, Jake, or are yours also free?
They're premium as far as I know. They've been free a few days here and there, but
got it. Okay, so it's not like NBA. So yeah, so go use that promo code live before lock, get an all sport pass, and you get all of your MLB content as well as the Jake Harry NHL projections that have been doing so well for your old pal and Jake Harry too, I presume.
Yeah, it was a really good season.
NBA noob qualifying himself as a tilt enterer on the premium Slack. Hey, no problem with that. Just do it smart. Tilt enter intelligently, not just like I'm going to chase it and I'm going to chase it with the same picks I made on the main slate that are blowing up. Do like Jake said. Use the leverage. Be smart.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so that is it for us. Hit that like button on the way out. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. Jake, what are you doing for the next few days content-wise?
Tomorrow, I will be on the Yahoo show with Osimo, Alex Baker, and Josh Engelman. So we'll be talking some Yahoo, building some lineups there, talking overall strategy and such. And then tomorrow, I believe it's Josh and myself, or is it me and you?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This is your film. Yep, you're doing Friday and Saturday.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm doing Friday and Saturday. Saturday with Emac in the morning, Saturday at night with Emac as well. So you'll be seeing a lot of me the next few days. So adjust your dials accordingly.
Next week is all me. I got 5 days in a row live before lock, so that's that'll be that'll be the marathon. But I'll make so many home runs in that time period, so that's what I'm excited for.
No
really
kidding.
gonna take a lead.
Yeah.
Or just embarrassingly lose every single night in it. That's probably more likely.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate the support a ton. Of course, subscribe to the notification bell. You'll see all that content with Jake, all the content we have on the channel. We have PGA content. We have all the MLB content. We have, I guess, what else do we have in season right now? That's just it, right?
We got tennis. We've got MMA when there's slates.
Oh, we have the Osmo Odds show tomorrow. That's another
Yeah.
fun one on Friday mornings or Friday afternoons if you're on the East Coast, but just popping on in the background. Ben Rasa, Jordan Frank, they sometimes have a guest on as well.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of fun stuff there. So the Osmo Odds show, I think, is one worth supporting because we're doing something a little different out there. We're obviously trying to dip our toe into the sports betting game, get better at that every day. And that show, Ben is in particular, a full degenerate with betting. So if you're a person who likes betting, that is a show for you. If you want to hear about Croatia's soccer exploits right now, he is the man to go to because he is on the ball with everything. So go check that out tomorrow. But yeah, we'll be back soon. We appreciate the support and good luck, guys. Enjoy your night.